I've heard people say that sometimes life doesn't fall apart in a single moment. It unravels thread by thread, silently and slowly, until you look down and realize there's nothing left to hold on to. That's more or less what happened to me. My name's Alan. I'm 35, married to Melissa for almost 8 years. We met when we were both young professionals, me in software engineering, her in marketing. At first, it was electric. Conversations that ran into the early hours, weekends spent exploring new restaurants, lazy Sundays wrapped in blankets. I loved her deeply. I thought she loved me the same. But life happened. Long work hours, growing responsibilities, and the kind of slow emotional drift that creeps in unnoticed. We weren't fighting, at least not at first. We were simply existing next to each other. I still made the effort, planned date nights, left little notes in her bag, made her coffee in the morning. But the spark wasn't reciprocated. More often than not, she was distracted, phone in hand, eyes flicking to notifications during dinner. I convinced myself it was work stress. I suppose in some way, that was easier than facing the truth. Then one day, about 6 months ago, her behavior changed more noticeably. Melissa started going out more often. Errands, she'd say, or just running to the store. Except she'd be gone for hours. Sometimes she came home with nothing at all. Her phone, once casually left on the kitchen counter, now rarely left her side. Her passwords were changed. I noticed, but again I rationalized. It was a Saturday afternoon in early autumn when everything began to truly unravel. We were preparing for a small dinner party that evening. I needed a new router for the house, ours had been glitchy, and Melissa offered to pick one up at a large electronics store across town. I thanked her and stayed behind to finish prepping. She was gone for nearly 3 hours. When she returned, something was different. Her cheeks were flushed, her voice unusually bright. She smiled more in that hour than she had in weeks. The change was too stark to ignore. That night, while she was in the shower, I noticed her phone buzzing on the nightstand. I glanced. The message preview read, "Can't stop thinking about earlier. Same time next week?" It was from a contact saved only as Nathan, store consultant. My heart stopped. I picked up the phone, hands trembling. The thread of messages told a story I wasn't ready to read. Nathan worked at the electronics store. He'd helped her pick out the router that day, but their conversation hadn't ended at checkout. Apparently, they'd gone for coffee, then to his apartment nearby. The texts were explicit. No room for doubt. "You looked incredible sprawled out on my couch today," one message read. "You make me feel alive," she had replied. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in. I set the phone back down just as I heard the bathroom door open. I forced myself to act normal, an impossible task with my heart hammering so loudly I thought she'd hear it. That night, lying next to her in bed, I stared at the ceiling, sleepless. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed time to process what I'd read, to understand how the woman I married had become this stranger beside me. Over the next week, I became hyper-aware of everything. Her sudden enthusiasm for running quick errands. The way she dressed differently, more carefully, for seemingly casual trips. How often she checked her phone and smiled at texts she wouldn't share. I needed proof not for her, but for myself. To silence the part of me still clinging to denial. So I installed a simple tracking app on her phone, a precaution I never imagined I'd take. When the following Saturday arrived, sure enough, she left mid-morning under the pretense of grabbing groceries. The app showed her location pinging not at the grocery store, but at an apartment complex downtown. Nathan's address. I stared at the blinking dot on the screen for over an hour, my stomach twisting. When she finally came home, the glow was back. The fake excuses flowed easily. I didn't confront her that day, either. I was gathering the pieces, preparing for the confrontation I knew would shatter our already fragile life. But part of me, perhaps foolishly, hoped I was wrong, that there was some explanation I hadn't considered. That hope was the cruelest part of all. I had always imagined that if Melissa ever cheated, I would know exactly what to do. I would be the calm, composed man who walked away with dignity. But when the time came, nothing about it felt that simple. After confirming her second visit to Nathan's apartment, my resolve solidified. I wasn't going to live with lies and pretend everything was fine. But I also knew I couldn't go in guns blazing. I needed her to speak the truth herself, to hear the words come from her mouth. I spent a sleepless night preparing myself. The next morning, after Melissa left for work, I printed copies of the text conversations, screenshots of her location history, and even pulled security footage from our home cameras that showed her leaving dressed to impress on her errand days. Evidence, not for court, not even for leverage, but for my own need to make her face the truth. That evening, I set the table for dinner like any other night. Melissa walked in around 6, looking tired but pleasant, as if she'd had a perfectly normal day. I waited until after we ate, when we were sitting in the living room. "Melissa," I began, voice steady, "we need to talk." She looked up from her phone, mildly annoyed. "Now? What about?" "About where you've been going on Saturdays. And about Nathan." Her face froze. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Then came the denial. "What are you talking about? Who's Nathan?" I slid the printed texts toward her. Her fingers trembled as she picked them up. Her eyes darted over the words. A flush rose in her cheeks, guilt or anger, I couldn't tell. "I can explain," she finally whispered. "Please do." She set the papers down and buried her face in her hands. Silence stretched between us. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. "It started when I went to get the router. He helped me, we talked, and then we met for coffee. It was stupid, but he made me feel seen. Wanted." Her words cut like knives. "I see you." "I've always seen you, Melissa," I said, trying to keep my composure. "But you chose to hide this from me. You chose to lie." Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't know how to stop. After the first time, it just felt too good to walk away from. And I thought if I told you, I'd lose everything. "You've already lost everything," I said quietly. She sobbed then loud, gasping sobs that seemed to echo through the house. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but the larger part stayed rooted, cold and distant. "Did you love him?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. It wasn't love. It was escape." That single word, escape, hit harder than any admission of love could have. It meant that life with me had become something she needed to run from. That whatever I thought we had built was no longer enough. We talked for hours that night, though it wasn't really a conversation. More like two people trying to sift through the wreckage of their marriage, hoping to find something salvageable. But every word only made it clearer, there was no way back. The next day, I packed a bag and left for my brother's house. Melissa pleaded with me to stay, said we could work through it. But trust, once shattered, doesn't piece itself back together with apologies. Over the following weeks, we began the painful dance of separation. There was no dramatic fight, no lawyers storming in, just the slow dismantling of a life we once shared. Friends were told quietly. Family offered awkward support. Through it all, Melissa kept saying she was sorry. But some things, no amount of sorry can mend. I moved into a small apartment a few miles away. Nights were the hardest, lying alone in an unfamiliar bed, haunted by images I wished I could unsee. Therapy helped. Time helped more. I threw myself into work, reconnected with old friends, and slowly, painfully, started to rediscover who I was outside of that marriage. Melissa and I finalized the divorce 3 months later. The last time we spoke, she looked hollow, like a woman who had lost more than she had gained. I didn't feel anger anymore. Just a profound sadness for both of us. People often ask if I'd ever consider forgiving her. The truth is, forgiveness isn't the hard part. Forgetting is. And rebuilding trust in anyone, including myself, is a journey I'm still on. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: sometimes the person you love the most is also the one who teaches you how to stand on your own.